those who've never had to dig through the trash to read cooking instructions on a package before. How's life going for you? As long as they aren't baking instruction, I like to live dangerously. If they are baking instructions, I am going back and forth to the trash can. I do this so often I just cut out the chicken nugget instructions and put them on the fridge with a magnet. Most other stuff I have memorized. For some reason I can never remember what temperature the nuggets cook at. Usually alcohol. I worked as security at a campus bar when I was younger. A lot of testosterone mixed with alcohol caused a lot of very stupid people to make very poor choices and try to fight the bouncers. Pro tip: if a bar has bouncers, they are used to trouble and there's most likely more than one and they're probably bored. Not a good idea to start trouble with one. In high school, a girl was leaning in to ask me a question at lunch. At that exact moment there was a fly near my face, reached up to swat it away and accidentally hit the girl in the eye with my finger. Her boyfriend jumped up and raced over, screaming about me hitting his girl. I did not have much chance to put up a fight before he hit me and I woke up a little bit later. I recall hearing her tell the guy that it was an accident, and my parents pressed charges. No idea what happened to that guy except that he dropped out later that year. She was a witch to me every gym class. I finally had enough and stood up to her, so she slammed my head into a concrete wall. It escalated from there. We became friendly after that though. This guy at school was constantly trying to get me to show him my tits, or grab my tits, but treated me like shit. We were maybe 14. Yes, I won the fight. In school, we were around the age of 11 I guess. A guy from another class, same year, have been bullying me for months for basically existing. Examples being, that he felt I looked more like an Alan. Just to be clear, that's not my name. He also bullied me for sailing and boxing in my free time. He defiantly had the attitude of someone believing to be better than his peers. Anyway, one day at recess we played football or soccer if you prefer, and he was way better than me, but I had maybe 10 kilograms more to move with than him. Not much, I know. So I was able to take the ball from him and he flipped, pushing and kicking me, and something just clicked and I had butted him. He dazed to the ground. He never did anything again. My teacher knew the history and just let it go since she knew that it was his own fault. Mostly middle school. I'm Russian, but live in Canada, and after a class about the Cold War, some people got pretty mad at me for existing. Edit: holy shit, this has exploded. Thank you all for the upvotes. I appreciate it very much. I was walking on a bridge about to go bridge jumping into an irrigation canal with my buddies. A big truck swerves across the lanes and almost hits us. I flip off the driver and immediately the truck turns around. The driver gets out and proceeds to tell me that he is going to f***ing kill me. Then we engage in a fight. He tries to throw me over the bridge but I managed to get to the ground. He hit me over the head at least 5 times before getting off me. I landed one on his chin but it didn't slow him down. Long story short, he was on meth. It wasn't a fair fight lol, and was sentenced to 5 years. He was already on parole. I had a gnarly time testifying in front of him and his one friend who stared me down like he was gonna kill me. In every single instance, someone else started it. I was always told, never throw the first punch, but feel free to end the fight as you see fit. Sometimes it was over a misunderstanding, rumor, lie, or money. In one case, I had a gun pulled on me because I asked for a receipt. You never know what people are going to do. I once got hit with a glass of Guinness because the bar I was working in wouldn't let a customer change the football match on TV. In the same bar 20 Scottish lads started a riot because Scotland were losing a match on TV. Both incidents were fueled by football and alcohol. I suppose the TV was a common denominator as well. I have been in several, but this was my first. He was one of my bullies and I usually just ignored him, but one day he started talking some absolutely horrible stuff about my grandpa, about how he was supposed to die in an accident and that he is happy my grandpa wasn't able to speak or leave the bed, and later tried to destroy my school bag and books. I grabbed him by his arms and just threw him to the ground and held him there. I wasn't punching him or anything, but his friends were mocking him so hard about the fact that a girl beat him. He actually stopped bothering me after that, so win-win. Edit. Grammatical mistake. So, long story, the only fight I have been in was when I was 15 and the other person was 30. So, my uncle at the time was like 50 and married a 30-year-old. Well, one weekend they stayed at our house. The first night it started going downhill. She told my sister and I we were being too loud and it was past our bedtime. It was 9:30 and we were teenagers in our own house. We didn't have a bedtime. The next day, I caught her and her stepdaughter, who was like 20-25, talking shit about my mom. They never really liked my mom that much, which is whatever, but how dare they talk bad about my mom in her house. I was pissed and called them out. They were both red-faced and said I didn't know what I had heard, so I tell my mom, and I'm just so mad in a 15-year-old girl kind of way. She blows it off and tries to calm me down. Day 3. We're having a cookout or whatever with some of my family and parents' friends. We're getting set up and people start showing up. My dad assigns me to making pink lemonade in a 5-gallon drink cooler. I start doing it and my uncle's wife comes up to me bossing me around or whatever, and my exact words were, "If you think you know everything, then you do it." And I just walked away, leaving all the stuff there. A couple hours pass and I'm sitting at a table with my friend, my brother and his wife. I'm holding their 6-month-old baby in my lap. My uncle's wife comes to the table, and standing across from me, I think she had been drinking, begins to scream and cuss at me and tell me what a bitch I am and how much she hates me and if I was her kid she would beat my ass, etc. Well, she's holding a drink in her hand and after she's done ranting, I don't even say a word, just stare at her blankly. I was a 15-year-old girl and knew exactly how to piss people off. Well, she says I'm so mad I could just dump this drink right in your face. I shrugged my shoulders and said then do it, and oh my god fucking Well, I sort of blacked out because I didn't even think and barely remembered what happened next. I just remember my brother bear hugging me with my feet off the ground. Apparently, she dumped that drink right in my face and I threw the baby on my lap, went around that table and beat that bitch's ass. I thought my dad was going to kill me and I cried so hard once I realized what had happened, but my dad was more or less on my side. He doesn't condone fighting, but he realized that she had been treating me like shit the whole time. Punched an abusive boyfriend in the face when I was 19. Don't really want to get into everything that led up to it. I regret using physical violence, but I think I was too young and inexperienced to know what else to do, and it's the only thing that allowed me to escape. An argument over whether there's a Halo mod in Minecraft or not. The resultant injuries were me getting stabbed in the head with a pencil by my best friend. Next day he came to apologize because apparently there was a Halo mod in Minecraft. High school, there was a douchebag in my year who liked to pick fights then run off, so he provoked me. I ignored him till he said something about raping me later. I ran after him, he ran. Unfortunately for him I was one of the fastest runners in the district. I body slammed him against the wall. As he bounced off it, I turned and punched him, He hit the wall again, got knocked out, got a major concussion and 3 cracked ribs. I got a 2-week suspension, but when he came back to school, he wasn't very mouthy anymore. Generally, bullying of some sort, physical, that is, somebody decides to take a cheap shot, because they figure they can get away with it. I respond, they escalate, and I go full on in response. When I was living with my sister and brother-in-law, they had a day-long party with friends, went out drinking, playing pool, darts, came home, kept drinking. By midnight, my sister and brother-in-law, among others, wanted to call it a night, but a friend's brother refused to end things and go home, which meant others, who were his ride, couldn't leave. And the guy was really disrespectful to my brother-in-law. At this point, I got home from work. Sister tells me what's happening, so I offer to plainly tell the guy it's time to go home. Well, first thing, I approach the wrong guy, and tell him things are done, time to go home. Boom. The actual troublemaker, who was like twice my size, and bigger than my brother-in-law, too, jumps up, curses me, and starts to pin me to the wall. I'm not big, but I'm very fast, have had some martial arts training, and, because of a lifetime of being bullied, I have certain reflexes when I'm attacked. So, I punched him in the throat as he tried to grapple me. Note, I'm aware of how dangerous that move is. I pulled it, caught him in the trachea with the web between thumb and fingers, so, it hurt, but didn't do much real damage. Luckily, his brother grabbed him before it went further, at which point, basically, he gave up and agreed to go home, complaining about the cheap shot all along. I guess he couldn't speak right for a week after. Former stepdad. Mom had a friend drowned. He'd had a drink, bit of an alcoholic. He tried touching my mom's friend. She didn't like. She pushed him. I laid the cunt out, broke an eye socket and nose for him, shortly followed by divorce papers off my mom. Once I got in a fight in the 3rd grade and it was with a special kid, but being like 6'7", I just thought he was annoying, but I didn't do anything about it until one day this kid, let's call him Ed. One day Ed walks up to me at free time and says something along the lines of I bet I could beat you up, and at this point 6-year-old me was fed up, so I said well let's fight at recess. He said okay, and so we did. When I found Ed at recess and we started fighting, I ended up winning 3-0. I remember he tried to kick me in the balls multiple times, but I was a tall kid and he was pretty short, so his foot barely hit my privates. I told my mom and my brother about the fight and I told them it was with Ed, and later that day my mom told me what special Ed was and why I shouldn't do that, but my brother was proud because he didn't know Ed was special. Since there are a fair amount of fight-prone females here, of which I am one, I have a question. Is there a name for the male companions of said fight-prone females? I was visiting an old high school friend, female, who like me takes no shit, and we are both married to calm, patient men, who both probably live in dread of having to finish what their wives start. Need a name, preferably German and long, for that. This dude back in high school wanted to prove that he could kick my ass. That's it. That was the whole rationale. I was a lanky tall dude who maybe weighed in at 135, and this dude wanted to say he was able to beat me up. For context, I was raised with no male influence at home and my hobbies included video games, reading, being an app student, and writing stories with my friends. I did my best to avoid conflict as a kid. Not exactly a notch in your belt as far as toughness goes, apparently when blindsided with the smack to the side of the head, though, I did have a capacity for conflict, as distasteful as it was. Not saying I won, because I was bleeding too, but I didn't make it easy. Fuck that guy, with something hard and sandpapery. I have a very good friend, best friend. And in school we were very comfortable with hitting each other in class. He started hitting me a lot and one day he gave me pedigree triple 1. Every time in washroom he used to fight with me and I usually responded back. One day in washroom filled with students in lunch break he slapped on my face as a joke. I slapped him very strongly that everyone shouted "Ho!" Then we both were on floor. Teacher came but he was very nice and didn't complain to my class teacher. This was 2 years ago when I was 15. Frat brothers smashing glass bottles on the sidewalk and throwing glass bottles at my porch at 2 a.m. One swung at me when I came outside and squared up. I countered and his face landed in broken glass. Then he was disoriented and punched his friend who was with him after he helped him up, and knocked that kid down. 200% knockdown ratio in street fights might be my most impressive life stat. One day in around 6th-7th grade, a group of friends and I were playing basketball. One of the balls hit me directly in the front of my face. Immediately I felt embarrassed, but also enraged, since we had some beef for the following months. In an act of revenge, I hit the kid who I assumed was the one that hit me. He fell down right after crying quietly to himself. A teacher nearby noticed and took me inside to have a talk with me about what I had done. I never got in trouble, because the kid I had hit was rude to most of the teachers at that school. He moved away or got transferred the next year and I never got a chance to apologize for what I did. He lied about me not tagging him in tag and told me I was a fetus and I could never touch him. So I shoved him, went to shove him again and his fist almost missed my face. I realized then and there if I kept going I was going to get beaten and stopped. Some loser was flirting with my GF in front of me to try to get rise out of me. I started laughing loud enough for them to hear, and when they asked what's so funny, I said, "You're a joke." They proceeded to walk over and knock my drink out of my hand and the fight went from there. Update: they are still a loser all these years later. Smile. A dude tried to mug me. It wasn't a long fight and honestly I was a demosteen with undiagnosed ADHD and no phone on me, so I just shrugged it off afterwards since I didn't get hurt too badly. My friends always joked that I was lightly stabbed cause the dude had a knife and grazed me with it. For context, the dude was definitely tweaking. I have a really hard time comprehending speech without my ADHD medications. And he got impatient. I'd taken self-defense classes since my flight response has never really existed and they definitely paid off since I honestly had no idea what was going on until afterwards. Someone spit in my grandmother's face right in front of me. Was a rough time. But I like to share the story as the time I hit someone so hard they shit themselves. 3 rapid hits to the kidney, their mistake for trying to grab my head and leaving their side open. PSA: humans are squishy, for the love of God cover yourself. Edit: for context, I was 17 at the time and they attacked me after I told them to fuck off. In hindsight, probably not the best way to handle the situation, but I was an angry teenager. A couple. When I was in high school I shit-talked some dude who hooked up with a girl I like and he dumped chips on me at a football game, so we set a date for a fight and came with friends and it was probably the lamest fight you could imagine. I would say we were pretty even, but he went to school and lied telling everyone he beat my ass. The second time I don't know if you can actually call it a fight, but more I just got jumped at a bar. I was very drunk in Florida and ended up in some bar with the dude with long blonde hair wearing sunglasses. In my drunk state I thought this dude looked awesome and tried to take a picture with him. But I guess it came off as mocking and next thing I remember was yelling at cops on the floor. The next day I woke up with a broken jaw and had to go into surgery. Good times. Dude had been bullying my friends, and I let him know that wasn't cool, like throwing basketballs at their heads and suck, and we're talking 11th grade. I don't want this to sound like I'm boasting, but I was like 6'3", 260 and fairly athletic. so he didn't try no mess with me, just my smaller friends. But when I told them to back off of my friends, I guess that made him think I was a good target as well. So while I'm changing in the locker room alone, he walks in and just says, "Man, it must suck to be a nigger. You must hate being a nigger, right? And look, there is a comp that says words don't have power if you don't let them." But fuck that camp in my opinion. I wasn't going to let the bully believe he can continue bullying and also refer to me as a nigger. So what followed was a short fight, and he never talked to me or fucked with my friends again.